Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today in Santa Clara for this year's SREcon. I'm Salim. I'm a site reliability engineer at Google, and over the years, I've contributed to and built distributed systems as well as built SRE teams. More recently, I've focused on programs including diversity and hiring, and that's what brings us together today.
And I'm Alex, a partner success manager at Major League Hacking. In just a bit, I'll share more about how Major League Hacking and how we've partnered with organizations like Google SRE and others.
It was about 20 years ago that Google built the field of SRE. But like all things in technology, that field has rapidly evolved over the past 20 years. Organizations and teams around the world have adopted the principles of SRE, and now we must focus on maintaining the diversity of this field as we move into the future. As I've been educating future engineers about SRE, and I've seen firsthand how important it is to build skills-focused training pathways, this has led to a program that Alex and I will describe to you today. As the world's production systems become more complex and interconnected, it's critical that we have a pool of well-trained technologists to keep things up and running. But just as important is that we create opportunities for anyone to enter the field, regardless of their background. Today, we'll share with you how you can accomplish both of these things for your org and the SRE community by building a diverse talent pipeline for your SRE team. Over the next 35 minutes, we'll talk about the challenges facing hiring in the tech industry, specifically in our field of site reliability engineering. We'll provide an overview of challenges that you may face in hiring and building a diverse team, and discuss programs that we've built to create and to sustain hiring pathways. After that, Alex will dive into the MLH Fellowship, what we learned from running this program together last fall, and then we'll wrap it up with Q&A.
When you leave this room today, we want you to walk away knowing a few key things. First of all, what are the key aspects of a successful skill development program? That's going to include the resources needed to administer and support it, both budget and team members. We also want you to know how training programs like this can help you build a more diverse talent pipeline, and how you can leverage our learnings from MLH and our partners in building programs to support technologists across the world. At this point, you might be wondering a little bit, who is Major League Hacking? Unlike Google SRE, it's highly possible you don't know about us. So I'd like to give you a brief overview of who we are and what we do. To keep it simple, we work with organizations like Google and Meta and many more to help them build more diverse talent pipelines and train the next generation of developers. We do this through programs like our Fellowship and Global League of Hackathons, with a single focus on providing early career developers opportunities to bridge the gap between the classroom and the real world of technology. Every year, over 100,000 people participate in an MLH program or event, and 1/3 of computer science students in the US are part of our community, a community that is now over 600,000 strong. Later in this talk, we'll share some of our key learnings from building this program, and how you can use those to focus on skill development and career readiness at your own organizations. One last note before we dive in. Throughout this presentation, we're going to use the term SRE, or Site Reliability Engineering, but just know that we intend for this to be inclusive of production engineering, DevOps, and any other related terms as well.
Part of what brought us together today originated with how challenging tech hiring can be. We at Google wanted to undertake new approaches to train future SREs. Last year, Andrew Ryan of Meta Production Engineering gave a talk right here at SREcon Americas about how a rising tide lifts all boats. And this was encouraging us to undertake programs like the Fellowship that we'll describe. And so we did. A lot of folks from different companies and organizations have provided guidance to us as we developed the SRE Fellowship. And this helped us cultivate a large pool and a qualified pool of candidates. When we look at SRE hiring, we see a few challenges. And one of these specific challenges is the hard-to-scale mentoring. MLH has a well-proven pod approach that we've found to scale very effectively. Some big tech companies, including Google, might spend half a year filling an entry-level SRE position, and that doesn't even include time to develop role-specific skills once they've been hired. Google has also traditionally preferred to focus its own resources on what it considers scalable efforts. And this is part of what made our partnership with MLH so fruitful. MLH focused on the pod approach, and Google put its resources towards technical mentorship. Among the challenges facing the field of SRE is that it still isn't mainstream with early career developers. So we need to put special emphasis on developing diversity in our hiring pipeline. First of all, there isn't a clear path from university or technical school to a position in SRE yet. And in some ways, SRE is still battling against its zigzag evolution from sysadmin to IT, ITIL to DevOps, which has all clouded the perception of the field. And the bottom line is that the blend of sysadmin and SWE skills is still a bit unusual. Because of these factors, SRE is not typically a well-known career track among early career engineers.
When we look at data from the MLH community, we see that there's still a huge interest gap between traditional software engineering roles and site reliability engineering. Every year, we send out a comprehensive survey to our community, and one of the things we ask them is about the roles they're interested in pursuing. Last year, about 50% of developers indicated an interest in software engineering, but only 18.9% indicated an interest in SRE. That's a really big gap, and as SRE teams keep growing, that's going to present challenges. In some instances, people simply don't know about this field, and in other cases, they don't realize what SRE is and what all it entails. Sometimes, they even think SRE isn't real software development, so they may perceive there to be a reputational or career risk in pursuing SRE compared to a traditional SWE route.
Why does this gap exist? One reason is that nobody has SRE in their undergraduate curriculum. A few schools, including the Technische Universität Darmstadt and the University of Washington, have tried one-off SRE courses, but SRE is yet to be fully integrated into undergraduate curricula and remains a niche discipline, which makes it difficult to recruit for. The good news is that once fellows and other people are exposed to SRE as a term, they can make the connections with what they have learned and the skills that they already have, and then how to apply these. But because SRE remains not as well known among early career developers, it doesn't have the same established pipeline as software engineering. When we look at the pipeline itself, it's difficult to identify folks who reflect the combined interest in software and systems. As we mentioned, there's no SRE track in major in degree programs. So many candidates need to build up skills to meet level 3 or returning internship expectations, even as they may already have strong SWE or systems skills. The skills development means that these candidates are often good candidates to also go through an internship or fellowship program, layering on SRE-specific skills. Big tech interviewing can feel daunting to some candidates. For example, a coding interview might require a working and complete solution in the 30 to 45 minutes allotted for that programming interview. And for many candidates, such a strict interviewing process doesn't reflect their aptitude and skills, and they actually have what it takes to be an SRE. It just doesn't come through in that narrow window of the interview. So on top of all of these challenges, there's also an opportunity and equity gap, as diverse individuals have often been excluded from the tech industry for a variety of reasons. Some people from underrepresented groups face very real challenges, such as a lack of mentorship and different access to high-quality curricula and resources. In other instances, they may have imposter syndrome. They've never seen someone who looks like them succeed in the world of tech, so they don't know it's possible. At the organizational level, culture also comes into play. And we have to ask ourselves, are we building an environment that is open and inclusive and that allows junior developers to ask questions and learn? Another factor to consider is that not all individuals have access to the same educational opportunities. SRE hasn't always been perceived in the same way as traditional software engineering, and this perception manifests itself in curriculum and in career counseling. While there are many capable candidates out there, where they went to school may determine if they get recruited by bigger tech companies. And as an example, community colleges often do not receive the same recruitment as do four-year degree programs, especially four-year degree programs from a slice of universities. While someone with an associate's degree in systems administration from a community college could be just as strong a candidate as someone with a BS in computer science from a top university, those different degrees often carry very different connotations to recruiters. And though we're facing these challenges, there are a few key steps that we can take to overcome them. We can look for candidates everywhere and provide opportunities to folks who have interests but may not yet have the skills. We can find candidates with diverse skills and experiences, candidates who would make great SREs and bring valuable different perspectives to the SRE role. We can assess for skills and aptitude instead of looking for a specific degree or a traditional educational background. The key question is to ask, who has the right skills to begin a path to SRE? We can find diverse candidates if we change our approach to recruiting. We can offer promising candidates fellowship opportunities so that they receive the skills training while they're in the process of applying for an SRE job. And we can bring these strong candidates to work, both as interns and as full-time employees, and then give them on-the-job skills training. So together, we can build the future of SRE where anyone with the aptitude and passion has an opportunity to enter the field. So where do SREs actually come from if SRE isn't being taught in schools? At Google, we've traditionally treated SRE as system administration with a software bent. That's because we describe SRE as what happens when you task software engineers with running production. Now, this graph shows what we at Google call the trainer curve, and it's from a 2007 article in Login magazine. And it shows how we seek to level up candidates who may meet either the systems engineer hiring bar or the software engineer hiring bar, and we can look to fill in that gap where they might meet. We're basically trying to level up folks so that we can hire them into an SRE-specific role. Because of this unique skill combination, many of our SREs actually come from internal training programs. So we'll hire them, and then we put them into an internal program. We'll talk in more detail about those in a moment. You can also hear a lot more about this on the MLH Developer Education podcast, which currently features Jen Petoff, the Director of SRE Education at Google. Often, when we look for a software engineer that has an interest or inclination towards systems, we can then layer on SRE skills and knowledge. We've also hired SREs from boot camps and other certification programs, and then upskill them with training at Google. So at Google, we've implemented a bunch of different programs, each strong in their own way. And most of these programs have focused on a specific aspect of the hiring pipeline and serve anywhere from dozens to hundreds of participants each year. But depending on the structure of the program, the associated costs to host it also vary. And cost is an important thing to bear in mind. The Mission Control Program, the first one here, serves Google-specific goals of providing software engineers with an intensive SRE experience that they can either use to jumpstart an SRE career or take back to their home engineering team. Internships are more traditional and recruit from four-year degree programs. And the apprenticeships are longer programs spanning up to 2 years and structured to meet government regulations. And, in building these programs, we wanted to ensure that we brought people from various backgrounds as well as non-degree programs into SRE. We wanted to provide a stronger, more direct on-ramp for SRE, where we could get close to 50% of each program's participants into SRE roles, whether at Google or elsewhere.
When we look at the industry more broadly, there's also a few other paths that people may take to enter SRE. For example, an aspiring SRE may enroll in an online course or seek out an industry certification, while others may complete an immersive boot camp. But the reality is, these programs aren't accessible to everyone. For example, in an online course, success is completely dependent on someone's ability to make time for the course, understand the material themselves, and then find a way to apply these skills. And while these programs definitely work for some, they're not the best fit for all. Different learners have different needs. And when we look at this from a systems perspective, not everyone's going to have the ability or the resources to succeed in pathways like this. To overcome some of these challenges, especially the systemic disadvantages we've seen in education and tech, some learners will find the most success in a holistic training and development program. At Major League Hacking, we built the fellowship to provide up-and-coming developers real-world opportunities to build their skills and launch tech careers. Initially, we started this program in response to the pandemic when many internships programs were getting paused or completely canceled due to the economic uncertainty. But even when things bounced back, we still saw there was a huge interest and demand for a program like this. For many participants, especially from those from underrepresented backgrounds, it was the last piece of the puzzle they needed to round out their educational experience and build up their resume. Ultimately, our goal is to provide talented developers with focused SRE training and connect them with organizations like Google SRE and others in the community so they have access to a more diverse and skilled talent pipeline. As we discuss the fellowship in more depth and share some of our learnings, our hope is that you can take these practices back to your own teams and training programs. While we're always open to new partners and certainly happy to discuss what that looks like, we do think these learnings are universally applicable. And we believe that together, we can level up SRE training across the entire industry. So how does the fellowship program actually work? Our goal is pretty simple. We want to connect high potential developers from our community and beyond with our program sponsors and partners. To kick off this process, first we build a fellow profile with our partners that's going to reflect their unique requirements. That can be everything from if they're wanting to hire to certain geographies they'd like to recruit from or certain tech stacks that they need. Based on that profile, we'll then source and screen candidates from the MLH community. We have a dedicated admissions team that reviews and matches applicants to projects, so you don't have to worry about the headache of recruiting and interviewing. Once fellows are matched, we launch the program, and over 12 weeks they level up their skills. Another one of our goals is to minimize the overhead required by partners. So we have a team of program management, pod leaders, and mentors to oversee the fellows day to day. We also provide wraparound technical and career mentorship to make sure we're giving fellows every possible opportunity to prepare to launch their careers. When we've spoken to our partners, we've consistently heard a few things that sets the fellowship and other training programs like this apart for them. First is the diversity of the participants. The MLH community is 2.5 times more diverse than the average computer science classroom. So this is a wonderful way to engage with and support underrepresented groups in tech. We also help broaden your reach outside of typical talent pools. For example, a lot of our partners usually rely on university graduates to fill open roles, but many members of our community come from community colleges, may have an associate's degree instead of a traditional 4-year degree. They may have even attended a boot camp or be a self-taught developer. And last summer's fellowship program with Meta's production engineering team, over 90% of our participants came from outside of their top 10 universities for recruiting. Another important thing is that this program is completely free for the fellow, and they actually receive a stipend as a participant. Our goal is to have this program accessible to anyone, and we found that this can remove a lot of barriers for participants. To make life easy for our partners, we also take on a majority of the administrative and program support. We oversee all the fellows' day-to-day responsibilities so that our partners can focus on valuable technical mentorship and relationship building. When we compare the fellowship to a traditional recruiting pathway, it's a great way to minimize overhead and broaden your talent pipeline. It also costs less than recruiting for an open role or training internally, so it's a cost-effective way to complement existing recruiting efforts. As you consider how you might build your talent pipeline for the future and support a growing team, we believe you could see similar benefits and capture the value of a focused training and development initiative, whether you decide to build internally or find an external partner.
For all of the reasons Alex just mentioned, we at Google thought the fellowship would make a great complement to our existing programs. So last fall, Google sponsored a pilot cohort of SRE fellows, and over the 12-week program, we learned that we can accelerate SRE learning through structured mentoring and instruction. When we focused on real-world material rather than on theoretical SRE material, we saw stronger outcomes. And as you may consider this program or possibly building your own, we wanted to share some of our key recommendations based on these outcomes and on Meta's, as they also participated in sponsoring a cohort of the fellowship. Each fellowship cohort can have a different corporate sponsor. One strong advantage of the program was the pod structure. So let's get into some details about this.
If you have been to an MLH event before, you'll know that a big piece of MLH is our community. So when we built the fellowship, it was really important that we maintain this aspect, especially since it's a 100% remote program. To make sure fellows have the in-program support they need, we structure them into what we call pods. This is just an MLH term, so you may have also heard these called cohorts or something like that if you've been a part of a program like this before. A pod typically consists of 8 to 10 fellows working together on a similar project. The fellows are overseen by what we call a pod leader, whose role is to monitor their progress, help remove technical blockers, and foster relationships among the fellows. The pod leader also leads regular calls throughout the week, so fellows have structured check-ins that mimic a real-world development team. Twice a week, they have a 15-minute stand-up, and once a week, they'll do an hour-long retro. For many fellows, this has helped smooth the transition to starting a job because they're already used to meetings like this. When we hear from fellows about their in-program experience, they also frequently mention how much they enjoyed the pod approach because it allows them support and network their peers. Another important aspect of any training program is going to be the curriculum, whether you decide to craft your own or adapt an existing one. For the SRE Fellowship, we adapted the curriculum provided by the Linux Foundation to give fellows an overview of all things SRE over the course of the program. During their 12 weeks, they'll hone their SRE skills through a combination of curriculum-based modules and hands-on project-based learning. And you can see an example of what they go through up on the screen here. Each week, they learn about a new topic or skill that's essential to SRE, and they reinforce those skills by implementing them into their portfolio project. To round out the learning experience, we also offer additional events ranging from SRE product demos, to resume workshops, to mock interviewing. One of our key learnings in running this program with Meta's production engineering team was the importance of mock interviews. Interviewing is a skill in and of itself, and it doesn't always reflect someone's skills. So we want to make sure that fellows know how to showcase their knowledge. By including this in the program, it helps our graduates become more competitive in the application process because they develop specific interviewing skills and they have the confidence in their ability to answer questions under pressure. At the end of the 12-week program, fellows walk away with a strong foundation SRE fundamentals and principles, and they also have the confidence they need to embark on their SRE journey. The last factor you'll want to consider in any training program is mentorship and how you actually support program participants. In the fellowship, we have multiple layers of mentorship to make sure that we set fellows up for success. The first layer of support is peer-to-peer. Fellows have a shared Discord channel and dedicated meeting times where they can ask questions and get help. The second layer is the MLH pod leader and other mentors. If fellows are struggling to unblock themselves, they can book a one-on-one with their pod leader or attend a group-wide session to ask specific questions or receive pair programming help. The final layer is actually help from our partners. Typically, experienced SREs from their team will volunteer to support and mentor the pod. By bringing in these team members, it's a great way to engage your team in training and development. And it also gives program participants an inside view to how your team works. They're certainly going to be technical experts, but they can also offer advice on their own SRE journey and answer any questions the fellows may have. In the context of promoting diversity for your team, mentorship is also an important way to level the playing field. People that have been subject to systemic disadvantages need support mechanisms to help overcome the challenges they face. And mentors can really help unlock someone's potential. If you incorporate these elements into your own SRE training programs or other programs you're a part of, we're confident that you're going to see a new wave of high-quality developers entering your talent pipeline, many of whom you probably wouldn't have recruited through traditional pathways. To date, we've had 222 graduates from the MLH SRE Fellowship. And for many graduates, the fellowship played a key role in helping them land an internship or their first job, or kickstart their journey into SRE. While the goal of the fellowship is to help early career developers learn SRE skills to launch careers, we look at a few different things to measure the success of a program like this. The first is, what is their actual knowledge? Do they have a deeper understanding of this field after the program? The second is their interest in SRE. Because of this program, do they have a new or continued interest in pursuing SRE as a career compared to software engineering or other tech roles? And the last is career readiness. Do the fellows have the skills they need to launch their careers in SRE? First, let's look at their understanding and awareness of SRE as a field. One of the things we highlighted was that there's not traditional pathways for SRE that you might see for software engineering. So coming out of this program, one of our key goals is that graduates know what SRE actually looks like and how they can get started in it. During the program, we asked fellows a set of questions to gauge their general perception of SRE as a field, and we found that this program can help demystify it for them. At the beginning of the program, only 50% of fellows said they know what an SRE does on a day-to-day basis and understand the skills they need to succeed in the field. But by the end of the program, that number jumps to over 95%. That's a huge increase, and for us, that's a huge success. After leaving this program, fellows actually understand the field of SRE and what it takes to succeed. This is important because as SRE continues to grow in importance, we need these emerging developers to know about the field and have a genuine interest in pursuing it. Another element of success we look at is career readiness. Within the fellowship, we mainly assess this by having fellows complete a series of mock interviews. The goal of these interviews is twofold. First, we want to familiarize fellows with a typical technical interview format and teach them helpful interviewing skills like talking through code and asking questions. And secondly, we do want to know how they're performing and how they'll do out in the market. Typically, the first 2 mock interviews are with an MLH mentor, and the final mock interview is with a team member from our program sponsors and partners. Since last summer, we've had 111 fellows complete our mock interview practice. And in this graph, you'll see how they performed on their final mock interview with real SREs. To give you a little insight into how we assess them, we look at a few major categories, such as coding proficiency, systems knowledge, and soft skills to determine their readiness for SRE roles. And they get rated on a 5-point scale. Of the 111 fellows, 23% of them pass the mock interviews, and 45% are just shy of passing. That's an incredible result to see. In 12 weeks, participants are going from not knowing about SRE to passing an interview with a real SRE team. When we take a step back and we think about how this can impact your talent pipelines, it's also encouraging to see, because in the short term, there's people that are ready right now to start their SRE journeys. And in the long term, there's people that are on the cusp of growing into SREs. While a program like this is certainly going to benefit your team, it's also amazing to hear from graduates about the impact the fellowship had on them as individuals. Let's look at Han Rodriguez. Last summer, Han participated in the fellowship program with Meta, who was one of our flagship partners. After finishing the program, Han actually intended to come back and do another round of the fellowship on our open source track, but ultimately he withdrew because of some really good news. He had landed an internship with the DevOps team at Intel, where he'd be using the exact same skills he learned in the fellowship. Han let us know without the training and opportunity of this program, he would have never received this offer. For another one of our fellows, before the program, they didn't even think they were capable of roles outside of software engineering. Up on the screen, you'll see Roa, who used her knowledge gained in the program to land an internship. Specifically, the fellowship gave her access to the resources and mentorship she needed to learn about the field and have the confidence to pursue a role in it.
And those 2 fellows represent only a small fraction of the graduates from the fellowship program. And I think that they illustrate how powerful this can be when we open the door for someone and help them build new skills. During Google's program last fall with MLH, I was particularly impressed by the strength of their pod approach. And built on the strong Linux Foundation curriculum, it meant that we were providing a set of fundamental skills for SRE and also developing career-enabling tools that fellows could use while pursuing their careers. The fellowship was also a reminder that not all things in SRE scale in a sublinear way. Hiring a diverse team may require a substantial time investment with each candidate. Our time makes a difference to the opportunities at their disposal. This time offsets some of the systemic disadvantages that these candidates may have experienced. Now, as you can see by now, we're passionate about helping others build more diverse teams. While this building may require some creativity, especially if you're building your own program, we're confident that you can make an impactful change if you keep these principles in mind. Create a communal learning environment. And this is a message we hear time and time again at SREcon and elsewhere. It is so profoundly true. Create a communal learning environment. take a skills-based approach to training by combining curriculum with a hands-on project. And provide dedicated mentorship to help trainees overcome technical and career hurdles. Programs that incorporate these principles have the power to change the way we build our teams. And when you walk out of this room today, we hope that you'll join us on the journey to make the world of tech a more inclusive and equitable space. With that, Alex and I would like to open up the floor to Q&A.